I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, here's to the end of the world, my friends. I can't believe that we are living to see a day where such mass hysteria and chaos is ensuing, but it is here, and I hope that all of you have stocked up on your toilet paper. Clearly, I missed the calling on that one. I hope that you're safe and your loved ones are taken care of. I want to just tell all of you that I'm glad that we have this little reprieve for a couple hours tonight, and this is my 4th anniversary on KCOR. I have been doing a radio show for 6 years, but my home is gladly on the best station on the planet. Tina Marie and the many wonderful people who work on KCOR have been so helpful to me and supportive. I love them. I also have a great deal of support from people all over the world. One of my biggest supporters, my biggest supporters and my backbone, UFO Classified's backbone, without a doubt, is Mario. And you can get into chat room. He has been here every week. Northern UFOs, I know that you will know him. He has a lot of friends in the UFO community because he is a kind and generous person. He doesn't ask for anything. He just is there to support and lend encouragement. I spoke with, in the field, Scott Brown, who is a graphic artist, and I spoke with Will Smith, and this is what they had to say about my friend Mario. He was one of the early supporters of In the Field, and I can't tell you how much his support and participation has meant to me. Recently has become the co-administrator for In the Field, which is a wonderful Facebook group. And Will Smith, who's one of the first people on my show 4 years ago, said many, many things he has to say about Mario. He's a man of high intellect, genuine passion for the topic, and a consistent voice of reason and focus. And he says that he is proud to call Mario his friend. I am proud to call him my friend, and I want to just say, Mario, first of all, I'm so happy to have you here because if you have been such a silent and kind supporter for me and others in this field, and I hope you know how much and I'm going to try not to start crying, but okay, anyway, I will. But I want you to know how much you've meant to me over the years, because there have been times, when you get kicked in the shins and you want to give up, and being a small business owner has been very difficult, but you've really been there, and I want to just tell you how much I love you and appreciate you for what you've done for me.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I know. I swear, if I wasn't here on Friday nights, I don't know what I'd do, other than maybe go out on a date or I don't know, whatever. But I love getting into chat, to seeing all of you and knowing that I have such a great logical group of people that care about the integrity of the subject. And, how are things up where you are? Because I know you guys are experiencing the same kind of mass mayhem that we are down here.
We are, but in addition to still having 3 feet of snow.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, wow.
So if we run out of toilet paper, we're all set.
Well, you know what? I mean, did you ever think you would live to see something like this happen?
No, never.
I know. I think all of us are just in complete shock. I mean, we made the mistake of going to Walmart today, and it's like there's not a lot of happy people in that crowd. And I don't know, but I just hope we make it through this. I'm glad that we have each other for that. But tell me, I mentioned Will Smith, and I know that you had the opportunity to hang out with him. Tell us about Will, because he is a very gifted artist.
He is very impressive, actually, because he's a good painter, drawer, and he's an actor on top of everything. And his group won again. I think they're going to down south to Toronto for the award ceremonies.
Wow. It's amazing. He really does a lot. And like I said, it was really cool to have him on my show. I need to get him back again. But when you guys hung out, what did you guys do?
Well, we had a few beers.
Perfect.
No, he actually, we sort of, he showed me around the island, and we talked a lot. We solved a few world problems.
That works. We need you now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, Lord.
Well, I have an idea for a fundraiser.
Yeah.
Toilet paper auction?
That could be good. My life is all about toilet paper these days. And it's crazy. Mother of...
Why toilet paper, though, is my question.
I'm not quite sure where we're going with that, but it seems to be a hot commodity, and I'm so glad. A couple of years ago, it was funny because I got into this, I'm going to be a prepper kind of scenario. It lasted for maybe a day, but luckily for me, I bought like all of these blocks of food, and my little, my masks, and all of this stuff. And I'm just like thinking, yeah, I'm ready for the apocalypse. But yeah, I clearly forgot to get toilet paper.
But somebody mentioned on Facebook, if you need 144 rolls of toilet paper for 14 days quarantine, you should have seen the doctor before this.
I hope that people seriously have a sense of humor about all this, because it's I don't know, but let's talk about something happy like UFOs and the world of conspiracy. And tell us why you first got involved in the subject. What sparked?
Well, I was always skeptical until I saw my first UAP. That sort of opened up the door, and I haven't stopped looking up since. And that was 1999.
And so where were you when you saw it?
In the swimming pool, my wife and I. 10:30 at night, September 5th, 1999.
So give us more detail, if you don't mind, about what happened and what you experienced.
Well, there was 3 lights in the sky, and they looked like poker chips. And then all of a sudden, the sky lit up about 30-degree sector, and you could actually see the blue. And this was at night, 10:30.
Wow.
So it seemed like it coincided with the lights leaving, basically. But there was a flash of light that I had never seen before. Tremendous.
And so what did you and your wife say to each other when you saw that?
Not too much, to be honest with you, but we wrote it down in the pool log. We have a logbook.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of forgot about it for a few years, even though I kept looking up. But and then we told the kids about it later on, and I said, look in the pool log, and you'll see. Gave them the date, and sure as heck, it was there. I've only had 3 sightings, but they mark you for life, basically.
So tell us about your other 2 sightings, if you don't mind.
The other one was on July 2013. It was a daytime. And it was, I don't know if you've ever seen the illustration of this, what the heck, Sirocco?
Yeah, Socorro, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Socorro. What is it?
Socorro.
Yeah. It looked almost exactly like no legs or no insignia, obviously, but it was fairly low, about 1,200 feet. And this is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Went right over my house. And the only thing I had was binoculars. I didn't have a camera, but of course that's all hearsay to you guys.
Well, if all of us were experts and how to really document sightings like that are so profound, it's like, we barely have time to react. So. And
over the years, I've interviewed people locally here, people I've known for 40 years plus. And I'm running about 70% of the people I talk to have had experiences.
And so what
I love the grassroots.
Yeah, the grassroots, that's important. And I mean, how you are the owner of the Chapleau Express. And so, I mean, you publish things about that. I mean, you're very open with the community.
It took me a while, though, but I did put a few articles in there, and I want to add more later on. But it's something that you gradually do.
Yeah. Yes.
There's still issues with it coming out publicly and stuff. So, and it's getting better. The younger generations seem to be more open to it.
Yeah, absolutely. But maybe that's a bad thing too. Because they're more open to believing some of the nonsense. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, but we all go through an evolution, though, because I remember falling for Billy Meyer, hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And now a little bit of the Skinwalker Ranch. I'm starting to have the same feeling as I did with Billy Meyer.
I know, isn't that amazing? Because you and I both know that we both seen it. There is something profound, something exciting, something that is interacting with us, and it's like, at what point do we step back and become grounded? And at what point does being grounded stop you from experiencing the phenomena? I mean, it's
well, it's there, and I'm not sure why people exaggerate and. Even the Skinwalker, like all these stories, whether people have seen stuff there, I'm not sure. But if you're talking holograms, you're talking about something else. And of course, that may have started with George Knapp and his presentation there with the walking dogs and smoking dogs. And, how far do you go with this?
Oh, that's the interesting thing. It's been fascinating for me to start, to look back and really dig into the history of when this was inserted into the narrative, how certain factions use that folklore to create a smokescreen to, in all likelihood, do other things. And it's been I think for both of us, the realization that Skinwalker is definitely not what it has been portrayed to be is shocking, but it's also a good lesson for all of us to know that the UFO subject is a great opportunity for people who are either, want to make money or who have a vested interest in steering the narrative because they're doing covert operations. I mean, it's just a prime place to do that.
And there's no sense of exaggerating the phenomena. It's there. Most people know that it exists. And why make up stuff about it?
What are some of the most fascinating cases that you have talked to witnesses about?
Well, there's one case in particular. It was a forest fire that was out of town, about 30 kilometers out of town. And this gentleman and his 3 sons were driving back from holidays. They were coming back to town. And they came up the forest fire. And they actually smelled the smoke and saw the flames. They drove through this short, maybe a half a mile to get out of the smoke. And this guy actually worked for the forestry department. So he rushed over to the office to report the fire, and he gave him heck because he said there's no crews there. There's nobody fighting the fire. So they sent 2 crews over there at the mileage, and there was nothing there. The last fire that happened was in 1929.
Wow.
whatever it was. And you got 4 witnesses in the car going through smoke.
Oh, that's interesting. Are there specific areas near you where you find that there is more activity?
I couldn't say, to be honest with you. But there are areas with high magnetic anomalies. Mm-hmm. And there's mining and there's gold and stuff. So I've always been interested. I've never really looked into it, but they do have maps with the... I guess they do surveys with helicopters for mining. Mm-hmm. And you can access these maps somewhere with the ministry. And it'd be interesting to look into that.
I know it is interesting to look at the magnetic anomalies, to look at where they have mining operations.
There is something that magnetic anomalies cause.
Right. And when I was state director for MUFON, I did this a lot. We would take different maps, and try to overlay them, and then try to figure out, okay, here's a military installation, here's a copper mine, here's a Native American reservation. I mean, there's so many, or a body of water. I mean, there's so many things that come up, but there are some constant themes running through all of this. So it's a very interesting puzzle. But can you think of any other cases that you had that just kind of puzzled you?
Well, they're all puzzling as far as I'm concerned. But
well, good point.
I have another case where this logger. Well, of course, they work at night with log harvesters, and he noticed that there was a lot of light behind them, but it was shining like he could see half a mile away. He looked behind, and there's this saucer just sitting there.
Oh.
And when it took off, it was like he figures it disappeared, but it was so quick that. And this guy's a pilot, and he owned his own company basically. And I've known him like over 40 years, so you have to take their word for it.
And so, I mean, what are your...
They seem to be...
Go ahead.
No, it seems like they're attracted. Another case was Skidoo Trail groomer operator, and at 10:30 at night, a big orb, and it seems like they're attracted to the light.
I asked
this guy, I usually use a dime or something like an arm's length, like to compare sizing. And you put a dime in your fingers and stretch your arm out. And I said, how big would it have been compared to a dime at arm's length? And he said about 2 feet.
Wow.
So it was either close or very big and high. We don't really know, but... And that was an orb. It was a plasma-looking orb. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you call them in orbs, but it could be. And then the other guy with the logging operator, mm-hmm. His had a silhouette of a saucer, but it was plasma, like it was looked like it was burning.
Oh wow!
So maybe they're hiding in there. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's
a little bit like Alison Cruz's sightings.
Yeah, and if Alison Cruz is a member in the field in that Facebook group that we both love so much, and she has recorded some very interesting things and has actually done a great deal of homework over the years, and I really respect her for what she's done, and it hasn't been an easy road for her. And that's sad because all of us should be working together to try to find a resolution. But I'm really happy that we've got Scott and Will and we can and other people that I've found that I really admire a lot. But what a trip. And so what do you feel about To the Stars Academy? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's another money-making scheme as far as I'm concerned.
Perfect.
And nobody's ever answered the question from the origin of the video. Because I have a file here that this was originally, I think it was 2004 or 2007. It was on the German videographer's webpage. And that's the video that they used.
And you're right. Nobody asks questions, or if they do, they get browbeaten by some of these new people that have emerged out of nowhere that seem to either be on the payroll or kind of maybe delusional, something, need their ego stroked. I don't know, but it is concerning to me. Do you think that? Do you think that there is a game behind this? Is it strictly financial? Is it to control the narrative?
Well, the video originally, if it was hoaxed, it was a graphic. I forget it was either college students, and it was a graphic arts course or webpage. And that's where the original was found. It was posted there 3 years before it came out.
And that's concerning in and of itself. And I think the fact that, they had, I remember specifically during the press conference when they first came out that they were using images that were clearly hoaxed. They weren't real images. And you would think if they were so concerned about really studying things that they would actually have but then you've got Elizondo kind of backtracking and sorry, we didn't do our homework.
Well,
what were you paid for?
I think one of the graphics was from the X-Files.
Not a big shocker on that one. So but these are the little things that I find so funny. It's like, why people seem to overlook those pretty big inconsistencies. It's like here you've got a group that's claiming that they've done all of this work, and yet they're presenting garbage. And what are your wishes and hopes for a younger generation that is coming into this and has to, is bombarded with some of this stuff from these groups?
Well, they have to stay away from Corey Good.
Oh. What?
No, YouTube is bad, but if they use YouTube as educational tools, man, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, YouTube it's never a dull moment, and it's funny to see some of these people that come out with these things and how it takes over a whole community, and the blue avians, and it's like I don't know. And even back in the 50s and 60s, the Venusians and the Nordic, the tall Nordics and different things like that. And don't get me wrong, the tall Nordics are pretty hot, but it's come on now, is that something that is obviously, to me, that's been inserted into the narrative? So what point are we just going to be dense enough to go along with the flow and not do our homework for the greater good of the subject and for our own sanity?
Well, there's traces of racism in that, the white Nordics.
Yes, there is. And I think that is a really important point, and it's been interesting to look through. And when you look through the history of the subject and you look at some of the people that were promoting the tall, the blondes, the Venusians, lots of questions. But I am here with my dear friend Mario. I thank him for his support. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this radio signal.
Looking for cutting-edge conversations while exploring quantum possibilities? Then look no further. We've got to fix it. Broadcast Team Alpha. Hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. They're connecting the dots and unraveling the cosmic mysteries. With interviews from top experts, embedded insiders, and whistleblowers from around the world on an array of topics. From health, wellness, consciousness, and ufology. All in pursuit of the truth. Broadcast Team Alpha, hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. Live Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The balance of power is shifting in the world today, and the old paradigm is being replaced with a new one. One filled with love, positivity, and prosperity for all. The only question you have to ask yourself: are you ready for a change? Broadcast Team Alpha. Come explore the quantum possibilities.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network. Your journey from the land of the living to the afterlife starts here. The Weird Tales Radio Show. Thursdays 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Your weekly fix for ghost stories, urban myths, witchcraft, and folklore. Hosted by the sometimes werewolf hunter, Charles Christian, and his co-host, Janie Christian. The Weird Tales Radio Show is an off-the-wall, fabulously atmospheric, and radio magazine formatted show, rated as one of the UK's most listened to podcasts. If you're a fan of the weird and unusual, then tune in if you dare. Thursdays 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. The Weird Tales Radio Show. The one show that takes your fears of the unknown and spins them into reality. The Weird Tales Radio Show on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where the weird and the strange come out to play.
Are you ready to go?
It's showtime!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to my anniversary episode of UFO Classified. I love being here every Friday. I love Tina Marie. I love KCOR. I love getting into chat and seeing my friends and people that actually have enough intelligence to understand that we might need to do our homework when we are dealing with the UFO topic. I am joined with my friend Mario, who is always in chat Northern UFOs. He has been a big supporter of mine and has held my hand through a lot of difficult times. I adore him, as do many other people in the community. And now we've got Barry Greenwood, who he's my mentor, my hero. Barry Greenwood is the world's foremost archivist and researcher. And so, Barry, how are you holding up? You've got toilet paper?
Yeah. I don't have any guns, though, so I'm in trouble if I have an assault.
Oh, dear. And are people as crazy there as they are here?
Yes, they are. I spent about an hour in line at a big box store yesterday trying to get a few morsels of food. So it's I guess it's like this across the nation.
Yeah, it was funny. We were going through the grocery store for the past couple of days, actually, because we keep hoping things will magically appear on the shelves. But it's people are just, we look at each other, strangers, and we all say, what is going on? We've never seen anything like this. And the kids are crying at school and everybody's in a complete uproar. And it's just like, this is, I don't know.
One thing I'm kind of happy about is I am in complete social isolation.
I think I'm digging where you're coming from on that one.
So yeah. I don't need to talk to anyone except over the Skype or whatever electronic media is out there.
That's a good thing. I'm thinking I'm digging that. Yeah, I don't know what. I feel like I'm living through a bad Netflix series or something. But
we used to have an electronic handshake. We called it a buzzer and used to scare people, but I think we need to go in that direction again.
I'm thinking so. That would be good. Mario, what are your thoughts on this?
Pardon me?
What are your thoughts? Obviously the world has gone completely insane, but I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Then I'm not sure if they're going extreme with the prevention here, but I think that's putting fear into people too.
Yeah.
But
I agree. I agree. I think it's going to be an interesting time. So I guess this distracts from the goings-ons at Skinwalker Ranch. So, good on them on that one. But oh God. So
it's going to revive again though at the end of the month with the new series coming on.
Yeah, that will be interesting. And Barry, you're obviously a very dear friend of mine, and you've been in this game a long time and seen the way things roll. But what are your thoughts now about the whole Skinwalker Ranch and some of the players that have been involved in that over the years?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I've been so far removed from that where I live here. I've never visited the place, and I've heard a lot of stories about it. It's rather fascinating that there's so many individuals involved with the research there, and I wish better results were coming out as far as conclusions, a regular flow of information that could keep us up to date. And I know you've mentioned before that there were competing factions sometimes involved with Skinwalker, and you have a version of it, they have another version of it. It's very confusing, and I think we're still waiting to get some kind of a general summary of really what's going on there.
It is, and I think we will be waiting with bated breath. But you did a decade's worth of work on MJ12, and unfortunately, much to all of our dismay, MJ12 is rearing its ugly head again, and probably forever. But it's doing so at the hands of some of the same players, the members of the Aviary, and so Mario, what are your thoughts on MJ12?
Well, I really don't know, to be honest with you.
Okay, well then Barry's going to give you the 411 right now.
Well, MJ12. I don't blame him for saying that, because unless you were in on the ground floor in that story back in the 80s, it is very confusing. There's a massive detail and minutia connected with it that I think escapes most people now, unless they go very deep into it. essentially, the story surfaced in the early 80s through rumors. One or two documents, alleged documents that were circulating, mentioning things like MJ-12 and Project Aquarius and all, that intrigued everyone, and including myself. I didn't know what was behind it, but as the years went by, more and more of the information was getting out, and just added to the mystery and intrigue of it. But when finally documents surfaced in 1987 by way of William Moore, who was Stan Friedman's co-author on the Roswell incident, the documents that came out just didn't look right. They had a tinge of unreality to them. And it's that point, I think, that the story began to fall apart for me. And the more we looked into it, we, meaning myself and other researchers like Bob Todd and Robert Hastings, it just unraveled. And it seemed more like an attempt to make money than anything. There are diverse opinions on that, too. Some feel that the Air Force might have been behind it, mainly because Richard Doty was a member of AFOSI in New Mexico when all of this was hot. So that was cited as an example of official interest in promoting that story. But again, I didn't find anything other than his direct involvement in it to indicate it was official at all. And in fact, it looked more like he was trying to cash in on a hoax too. And because you're a member of the military doesn't mean you're immune from creating hoaxing. So with all of that, I just wrote the whole thing off.
Well, and is it shocking to you to see the fact that some of the same people that were once, people questioned their motivations are now being held up on a pedestal?
Oh, not at all. Stories like this never really go away. It's like a zombie apocalypse. Shoot it in the head, it falls down, gets up again, and starts rambling around. And that's what MJ-12 has done for many, many years. It's on the upside of 30 years old now and still out there being discussed as something serious. It's not. I assure you it's not. There's all sorts of holes in the story, but depending on who you talk to, it's greatest discovery ever made, or some deep, dark, deep state activity going. It's just rumors run wild on it. The less information you have, the more the rumors proliferate. And this story tended to mete out details in small amounts and not really respond to important questions about its legitimacy.
Well, and when you look at MJ-12, I mean, there have been some people that have been involved in To the Stars Academy who've tried to, again, kind of promote the MJ-12 narrative, which has been interesting to me and concerning, and nobody is calling that out or addressing that.
Yeah, some recognize it, but really the narrative is in charge of the story at the moment. To the Stars and the folks promoting it. And I don't know that Tom DeLonge has overtly endorsed MJ-12, but it's certainly some people connected with it that have been involved with it in a big way. That should be called out, because I wouldn't like that connection if I were promoting a project seriously and have to reflect back on MJ-12 as a serious element of it. It just wouldn't sell it to me. But not many people know about that.
Right, and I think that's one thing I love about this show is that we've, by the grace of God, we've gotten to, bring people like you, Barry, on who did the hard work for a decade and has been so relentlessly pursuing this and digging into things and calling people, on the carpet for promoting stuff that cannot be verified. And I think the world of you for doing that, and that's why you are my mentor. And I'm sorry about that. You probably need therapy to get over that. But
the story was a massive headache. And I mean, as soon as it became evident that there were problems with it, you still had to work on it for literally hundreds of hours to expose every little bit of it that was being dangled as serious information when you knew it wasn't. And it's like gritting your teeth and proceeding along something you really don't want to do. I didn't want to do that, but I had to, and I wrote it up numerous times.
Yes, you have, and I will make sure that people get that information, and we can at least try to get good information out to a younger public. But I want to talk a little bit about, because this is important, some of the same players that were involved with MJ12 promoting that are some of the people that are involved with To the Stars Academy, and our members of, or whatever, were put in that little aviary group, the Feathered Friends. And so, Mario, I want to ask you first, just to, I'm not sure what you know about the aviary or some of the people involved, Colonel John Alexander, Pandolfi, Kit Green, Valet, all of these people. Have you come across anything, or do you have any questions about what this group has been up to?
Well, I've listened to a lot of Grant Cameron's presentations on the aviary, and to me, that's too many arteries coming out of there.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's confusing.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, Barry, when you look at the aviary, whatever, we know that Bill Moore kind of came up with this group, and then the code names and yada yada, and then put these players that are still involved today, steering the narrative, kind of lump them together. But what are you, Barry, give us a little background on that for people that don't understand what that is.
What you mean in context of the Bigelow activities now?
Well, of Bigelow activities now, but I mean, laid some groundwork of where that first came up and some of the concern back in the day.
Well, back in the day, everyone was looking for the smoking gun on UFOs. They wanted something, anything. Roswell had promised to be that for a while, and I think because of the interest in Roswell during the end of the 70s, it kind of lit up people's imaginations about, well, if Roswell was real, then how was it investigated? Who was behind it? It had to be the government, because some of the early stories coming out involved the military picking up piles and piles of debris and bodies as well. The bodies really didn't come into it until a little bit later. I never heard those stories originally when the story broke in the 40s, and for about 30 years, that's the way the Roswell story had remained. Just they blew it off as a weather balloon in the press, and the government never really responded to it very much, despite the fact that there were very large UFO waves through the later 50s and the 60s and 70s, and it just never became significant until around 1977 or so, when Jimmy Carter asked his science advisor to look into the possibility of investigating UFOs again. Apparently Carter was a buff, and he had a sighting himself. So he was curious, like everyone. And press went to the first place he thought would be the ideal organization to look into UFOs, and that would be NASA. And NASA responded that unless they could be given debris or bodies from UFOs, there's really not much they could do about it. So press reported back on that, and it hit the media. There were some significant stories, I believe, around the end of November at that time. Well, shortly after that hit the media regarding press's discoveries, the Roswell thing had begun to rise again. Initially, it was with Jesse Marcel, who came out and spoke to Stan Friedman through a radio connection. And when Marcel's story was discussed, then more people came out. It was like a snowball effect where one talks, then 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 others begin to add their own versions of Roswell, almost all of which I hadn't heard before. These are essentially 30-year later recollections of the original story. And it became bigger and more embellished, and there were more crash sites involved. I've heard as many as a dozen crash sites for Roswell. Sometimes 2 objects crashed. 2 objects hit in the air and crashed in different areas. So I really had a problem with all that conflicting detail, and again, because of that, getting into the media and the UFO press, MJ-12 kind of gained momentum. And that rolled along almost on a separate track, really. It had a different branch of a tree that it came off of. And that went hot for probably a decade or so. And yeah, the aviary were folks that Bill Moore, who was in contact with, who had various degrees of expertise and involvement in the subject, and included Hal Puthoff, Jacques Vallée. There were behind-the-scenes stories when the To the Stars releases came out in 2017, where apparently Richard Doty had been talking about giving lectures to an aerospace company, and I couldn't imagine it could have been anything else other than Bigelow Aerospace, given the context of what was being revealed at the time. So, you know, if Doty was behind the scenes and Puthoff and Vallée were there, you have the good portion of the aviary back in business.
And then that's, you know, I mean, I remember you and I talking about that. And I mean, it was back in the day when I was, not completely sold on reality, clearly. And now it's all making sense to me. And it's pretty shocking. And it's shocking to me that, you know, we can see certain organizations now, newer organizations that are actually paying for some of these people to speak at their conferences. It's like, you know, to me, as I look back at a couple of these people, I mean, they have been involved in and received funding from some very, very shady people. And why aren't people addressing that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's still a hot story. It's been a hot story since 2017 as far as Bigelow's activities and research into UFOs. You may have noticed an article recently in Popular Mechanics, a very large article. I've never quite seen a UFO article in a mainstream publication that lengthy, but it purported to examine the To the Stars Bigelow connection in some detail. And one thing that came about in the original story was that supposedly the AATIP, which was which Louis Elizondo was involved with, had large amounts of information, reams of data, they said, and they also, Elizondo reported a UFO history book. in particular, which fascinated me. He said it was a 490-page or so document, and it was on the shelves at the offices there. And for quite some time, I couldn't understand what that might have been, if it was a government document or an existing UFO publication that they just called a UFO history. But the Popular Mechanics article answered the question in that they discuss what was called a 10-month report. The first report in 2008, I believe, or 2009, that where Bigelow Aerospace had reported their activities to the DIA. And that 10-month report was just about the same length as the history book that was discussed in 2017. So I was fascinated. I read the article in Popular Mechanics, and I suddenly was surprised by the fact that they took a liberal extract from my book Clear Intent and put it in the report.
Yes, and I mean, this is something that is really important. And when I read that article, I was kind of shocked on multiple fronts, not only because I had met with the author of the article in Trier, Germany, in a little cafe, and interestingly enough, that was the first paragraph, and then I also noticed some inconsistencies with some of the things that were being reported on in Popular Mechanics, but I want to talk a little bit more about that when we come back from our longer of the two breaks, and I want to thank my dear friend Mario for being here and supporting the show. And you are a very kind and gracious person, and I could not have done this without you, Mario, so thank you from the bottom of my heart.
You're very welcome.
Yes, and we're going to take a break. Barry's going to stick around. Nick Redfern is going to be joining us as well to celebrate the 4-year anniversary. I love this show. Thank you for your support. It is a listener-supported show. I'm here because we deserve the truth, and we're not getting it. So this is the one way we'll make sure that we influence the younger generation in a positive way. We are going to take a break. I want to say please go to UFOclassified.com to check out the latest news, details about the show, some of my guests, and also please go to Barry Greenwood, the Greenwood Archives, to actually learn about history, which is critical right now. We are in the throes of losing some of that important history that could help us build things in a positive direction. But, again, Barry, Mario, thank you for being here. Barry, we're going to get you back in a moment. And Mario, I know you're going to be in chat. Thank you. And stay safe out there, and don't let the zombie apocalypse get to you.
I shall.
And if you find some toilet paper, I'll give you $100 a roll. How about that?
Okay, I'll have an auction later on today.
Oh, sweet. I love it. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. We will be back, and the best is yet to come. Stick around.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome to the second half of UFO Classified. I am always happy to be here and spend my Friday night with some of the most intelligent people on the planet who actually care about the UFO topic. They care about good research. They care about weeding through all of the garbage that we have been presented with time and time again. We understand that disclosure will not come at the hands of the United States government or to the Stars Academy. I know that's a shocker. Hate to burst some of your bubble, but whatever. I want to give a big shout out to all of my supporters who take time to not only promote the show, but to also show support in financial ways. I want to thank Aaron, Andrew, Chris, Dave Beatty, who has been on the show before and did a wonderful documentary, The Nimitz Encounters, Ed Powers, Ira, Irv, John, Hoska, and Northern UFOs. I appreciate all of you, and you are the reason that I am still able to try to get out here and promote the truth and ask hard questions. When I got into this publicly almost a decade ago, I had no idea that I would be kicked in the shin so many times, that I would come up against so much corruption, that I would see good, honest people who've had genuine sightings, that I would see the manipulation at the hands of a small group of people. We deserve more than this. I am grateful for all of my friends who have supported me in the research field. Barry Greenwood, as I've said, has been a mentor, helping me collect a beautiful archive, which my guest that is joining us now, Nick Redfern, has visited, and I'm very proud of that. I want to thank all of the people who've contributed to that archive: Fran Ridge, Rich Vitello, Norm, all of you. It means so much to me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I also want to give a big shout out to Gordon Lohr, who is a little bit under the weather tonight. We are working on a book together. He wrote Flying Saucers from Beyond the Earth, a UFO Researcher's Odyssey. You can find links about him on my website, UFO Classified, so make sure you visit that. But Nick, first of all, welcome to the show. You have been on a lot of times, and what can I say? I think you do some really amazing work, and you're always writing a book. I don't know how you keep up with everything.
Hey, Erica. Well, thank you. I've enjoyed all the, the years that I've been on the show, because I like the fact that, it's sort of straight talking, and, there's no sort of skirting around things. It's all what you think is what you hear, So.
Well, thank you very much. I will tell you, I'm getting a little more spicy in my old age, I guess. But I think it's just,
nothing wrong with that.
Well, seriously, it's like you both of you know, Barry and Nick. It's like you're in this for so long, and you see so much. You just think, okay, wow, I think I'm going to be hiding in the closet with a pitcher of margaritas. That should be a good night. But I don't know. It's crazy. And so, Nick, just to get you up to speed, when we left off, Barry and I were talking about ATIP, and we were talking about an article that was released in Popular Mechanics, and that article was quite interesting for multiple reasons. And it's talked about a 10-month report that was released, that was shown to the author, Tim McMillan, of the Popular Mechanics article, and we also have references to it from Luis Elizondo. And so Barry, let's honestly just get back into that, because this is good, and I'm sure Nick can keep up and give us his comments about this.
The 10-month report was cited, but of course we haven't seen it yet. I don't know if it'll ever come out. That something like that tends to be privileged information. Under the Freedom of Information Act, there is a provision that allows documents like that to be withheld completely because it involves an arrangement between the government and a private contractor. And considering that a private contractor can reveal business secrets and activities in a report to the government, there's no compulsion to have them release it as a government document. Technically, it's a semi-document. So we may or may not see it. It's up to Bigelow whether he wants to get it published or not. But I mean, that's not the end of the story either, because that 10-month report was only the first reporting to the Defense Intelligence Agency about the contract work. As you know, or from all indications, it continued at least into 2012. So there must have been several other 10-month reports that we haven't seen yet, and maybe even more than that.
And so, when you look at, and this has been typical for the UFO world, and I'm going to ask both of you this, when you look back historically and you see that there are people that are putting things forward from anonymous sources, and, they kind of come to the guys, Popular Mechanics says, or, yada, yada says. I mean, at what point can we really use anonymous sources, and at what point is it a hindrance to what we are trying to do to promote integrity in this subject? And Barry, I'm going to ask you first, and then Nick, I'll have you answer.
Anonymous sources, we had to deal with that in the production of Clear Intent, for one, where some military people had approached us and told us stories, but we couldn't use their IDs in connection to the stories, which was, to me, it's disappointing, because if you remove the source of information from something that's otherwise straight reporting, it tends to reduce the credibility of the report by about 90%, because nobody else knows where it comes from, and they have a reasonable right to state objections to it, saying, "Oh, you guys just made that up." So, we had to deal with that. I would report something and say, we can't reveal the sources, and it's completely understandable how something like that would be seen as having doubt. But sometimes we had anonymous reports about stories that were known, just being reported from another point of view. Like several military men would have a sighting over a military base, and two of them would identify themselves, the third wouldn't, but the third's details agreed with the first two. So in that case, an anonymous source has more credibility. With regard to documents, same type of thing. Sometimes we didn't have the source of a document, we just had an image of it. Almost never did we see original copies of documents. We just saw photocopies or multi-generation photocopies of them. So we had to deal with them as they were, and I really didn't want to use unsourced documents. It grated against my sensibility to do that. I wanted Clear Intent to come across as based in hard information and hard fact, and I don't. There are very, very few examples in the book where I had to rely on anonymous sources. But we discussed MJ-12 earlier. That was a horde of anonymous sources.
Right, and I just have to ask Nick, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but Nick, I mean, what do you think? Because you've had to deal with this as well. I mean, what do you think at the end of the day? Tell us about anonymous sources and how you would use them.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's always preferable if you've got people who are speaking on the record. I mean, that's the perfect scenario. But what I would say, I mean, over the years, I'm sure like Barry, I've crossed paths with what you would call whistleblowers, insiders, that kind of thing. And if the story pans out, if it reflects something that actually happened, and then that person confirms it in a different way, but it's clearly connected, then that's a good thing. But of course, the skeptics will always say, well, how do we know that this person even exists, or was this person actually sort of being used or knowingly used, and to sort of to foggy the scenarios to where we don't really know what's going on. So I think we have to be careful. But one of the things I would say, which a lot of people may not know, is that with all the publishers that I'm with, now I try not to use whistleblowers. I've maybe used 9 or 10 across all of my various books. Now, what I would point out to people is that a lot of the people who, in my books, as I said, 9 or 10 people, those people, when I've spoke about them in lectures or written about them in my books, the important thing is they're not anonymous, they're unnamed, and that's actually, some people say, well, what's the difference? Well, I'll explain what the difference actually is. Now, if you've got a completely anonymous source and you have no validity for the person or the claims that they're making, that can be problematic. But of all the 4 different publishers that I'm with, each and every one of them requires release forms for the people who I interview, and that includes the whistleblowers, if you like, the anonymous sources. And the publishers, as long as they have the name, address, email address, and a phone number, they will go ahead and allow that testimony to be used because they can prove this person existed or still exists. But in relation to the whole angle of totally anonymous sources, a lot of publishers are very kind of antsy about having pages after page of whistleblower testimony, and the person is just referred to as Mr. X or something like that. But as I said, with most of the publishers, and a lot of people don't know this, that they all want a release form, and it's a release form that has all the data on. For example, I did a book, a very kind of controversial book, back in the early 2000s about Roswell, where I felt that Roswell was not an alien event. I think it was something more sort of dark and disturbing, like a human experimentation thing. Now, whether you buy into that or not, 2 of the people in the book were placed under an alias, but Simon & Schuster, who published the book, required me, and then their attorney required me to provide all the information on the person, even though they were actually not named by their real name in the book. So, in other words, it depends how you look at this phenomenon and how it's released and how it's used, and which has an effect on the credibility of the person or adds to the credibility of it.
And thank you for clarifying that. And I want to just go back to, Barry, you had mentioned that in this 10-month report that your work was mentioned in that without credit. And so give us a little bit more background on that.
Oh, just a little correction. There was a credit in the article, but it was very, very tiny. It was a reproduction of a page from the report, shrunk in size. And if you blow it up, like put it on a computer screen and enlarge it, you can see the credit there was simply clear intent in the page number in it. It was from chapter 3 of the book. But I had wondered if, there was anything with copyright involved in that. But since the report itself, it was submitted to the DIA, and there's no real copyright violation there because it's a private report. They can cite something without having to back it up with copyright law. But I think if they attempted to publish it someday, that might be a different story.
And so what documentation do we have to say that was the report that was actually submitted to the DIA?
Well, the article itself says so, and the author said he was allowed to see it and reproduce some of it. But
I would say the burden of proof is on him for giving us, that information. Where's the proof that was, submitted to the DIA?
Ask the author. He might be able to document it for you.
I mean, but shouldn't that kind of,
Usually a magazine like Popular Mechanics would require more than just say so, that was the case. And that did agree with the 2 year ago reporting, or 3 year ago now. on what the AATIP had in their files. It's entirely sensible that Bigelow submitted a report, and it was the same size as the one that was cited. And, you have eyewitness testimony here of someone who saw the report and was allowed to use some extracts from it. The page that cited the clear intent information appeared to be a direct reproduction from that report. I would suggest having McMillan on and question him about it.
I think that would be a great idea, and I'm sure he would be more than willing to come on. I know that I did approach him after this article, and he said he would come on, so I will definitely get him on there because there are lots of questions that need to be answered, and it sounds, we'll see where the chips fall on that. But, I appreciate both of you talking about anonymous sources and integrity in trying to get to the bottom of this, because both of you know this is a really murky subject, and we've been misled. And so now I want to ask each of you to give our audience examples of when the UFO narrative was used to hide covert operations. And so, Nick, if you don't mind, just give us a little rundown on your opinion on that one.
Well, yeah, when I get asked this kind of question or something broadly similar to it, I always point out one thing first, is that I do believe there is a genuine UFO phenomenon, but what I also believe is that this genuine, mysterious phenomenon has essentially been hijacked, if you like, for sort of disinformation and counter-intelligence operations, psychological warfare, that kind of thing. And to give you one example, for many years a story circulated around, which I'm sure Barry knows the story, about an alleged UFO crash on the island of Spitsbergen, just off the coast of Norway. And that story of the Spitsbergen crashed UFO has been around a long, long time, and it's kind of like Norway's version of Roswell. However, if you look at some of the NSA papers, National Security Agency files on UFOs, if you go through them, the declassified ones, there's a translation of a Russian magazine article on UFOs, and the NSA had it translated. Now, what's interesting, in the section of the article where somebody had translated it, somebody in the NSA had circled it and then put next to it "plant," as if the story had been planted for a specific reasons. Now, the fact is that the story of Spitsbergen and the crashed UFO, it's an interesting story, but nothing really has come to fruition. But if you look at the file, it makes you wonder, with this "plant" word, as if somebody had sort of seeded this story for whatever reason we don't know. But, there are a number of cases like that. For example, if you go back to the early 1950s, sort of like a spin-off agency of the CIA, the Psychological Strategy Board, they did all sorts of weird sort of psychological operations to sort of freak the Russians out. And another example from the other way around, not too long ago, the FBI declassified a large file which talked about rumors in the late 1940s that the Russians had smuggled 5 or 6 atomic weapons into the United States, and they were all primed and ready to go, and it would take out 5 or 6 US cities. And the FBI followed this for a couple of years and finally came to the conclusion that this was just a bogus story, which it turned out it was. But the Russians essentially were doing this, as I said, to freak out the FBI into thinking that there really were, sort of 5 atomic bombs dotted around the US just ready to go off. And there was nothing to it. It was just complete fiction, it turned out. But, so that's how agencies work. They put together fabricated stories to essentially not sort of affect ufology, but to the potential enemy. And back in the Cold War, this would have been the Russians. So, we need to be careful and understand that in relation to the UFO subject, sort of paralleling, this atomic bomb story, what's interesting is, you can see sometimes how stories have been fabricated, for one means or another, but it still doesn't take away the fact, that there is a real phenomenon.
Absolutely, and that's where it gets so murky. It's like I think with all the Skinwalker stuff that I've been doing and looking into other things, it's been kind of a cautionary tale from me, and that's why I want to stress this so much to other people, because this is such a murky thing, and we have to always question stuff that is put forward by new groups that appear on the scene, or people that have government ties, or yada yada yada. There might always be something behind the scenes that is steering that, and so we need to be cautious with regard to that. But we also need to understand there is something absolutely that is important and real that deserves research. But anyway, thank you both for being here. We've got a couple of minutes to break, and Nick, I just want to, before we go to break, tell us briefly about your new book. You've got 30 seconds. Ready, go.
Well, start of April, I've got a book coming out called Assassinations, and it's not a UFO book, but it's sort of a history, a look back throughout history of famous and less known assassinations, going back from ancient Rome, the Egyptians, right up to the present day.
That was good. Dang.
Crammed that in.
Well, thank you very much, and I again, I just want to say I thank you so much for Barry, to you, Nick, and to all of the people that have supported the show and that listen and that have that have the intellect to understand this is an important subject, but we also need to be very diligent about looking at all of the facts and not believing things that are presented to us at face value. I think that is something that both of you have taught me, and I appreciate your mentorship in that regard. You can find me at UFOclassified.com. I promise you the best is yet to come, and this year is going to be a great year where we will be breaking more ground and asking important questions about really what took place at Skinwalker Ranch, what has taken place at the Uinta Basin, and perhaps shining a light on people who have been involved with this that have no intention on actually studying UFOs, but there is something more covert at hand. I'm Erica Lukes. We will be right back with Barry Greenwood and Nick Redfern.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Vegas, baby! Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint. And the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare, and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in, a realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very moment.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
1, 2, 3, 4!
To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds.
I love the music. Oh, I listen to.
The future of radio is here and now.
For those fortunate enough to help the person who has always been their hero, AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I am here and I'm joined with my blind cat Lewis, who has been, joining me more and more as the episodes go by, but I love him, and I know that Nick has actually had the opportunity to meet him and loves him as much as I do, and so if you hear him in the background, that's my baby. So I want to thank everybody for supporting the show. This is my 4th year on KCOR, and in that time I have interviewed some of the most amazing researchers on the planet, people that stay behind the scenes, people that understand that the UFO field is fraught with landmines, and that not a lot of good comes from going out there and instead of staying behind the scenes and doing good research. And I'm very honored to have had all of them on my show to also raise some important questions about the topic, about the manipulation, and all sorts of things. So you can go to UFO Classified to support the show. This is a listener-supported show, and I appreciate all of you who take the time to do that. I am joined now, and I strategically asked people I absolutely look up to and adore on my show tonight, Nick Redfern, who is author of, I don't know what, 1 million books by now. It's like every day you wake up, you've got a new book out there, and I'm amazed at the level of research that you do for all of these things. You've been a great guest over the years and also a great friend to me. You've let me bounce a lot of things off you, and my dear friend, Barry Greenwood, who is the world's foremost archivist and historian in the topic. He wrote a groundbreaking book back in the 80s called Clear Intent. If you don't have it, I would highly recommend you get it. That will give you a good foothold for what you're dealing with right now. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you for coming back on the show. We were talking a little bit about the way the UFO topic can be manipulated by the powers that be to hide covert actions. And Barry, just really briefly, I know we've talked about this on a couple different shows, but what is one case that you can think of and tell the listeners about the way that the intelligence community or the powers that be have used this subject to hide other operations?
Well, there's probably many examples with the U.S. in the past, especially how they tried to explain away very unusual sighting reports with bad explanations, and would issue those explanations to the public to dissuade people from thinking that they were taking the topic seriously at all. But one of the most vivid examples I recall is actually a Russian one. In 1977, it been reported through the UFO press that there were some strange UFO incidents over the city of Petrovsk in the then Soviet Union. And it garnered a lot of press here, and reporters tried to gather as much as they could from the Russians. Wasn't very successful, but still the narrative was that there were pretty weird sightings over Petrovsk. So it wasn't evident until years later that with some investigative reporting, it was discovered that Petrovsk was the near the site of secret Russian rocket launches. And the launches, unknown to the public because they were secret, were being reported as UFOs. They presented this strange, multi-arm, very bright spiral appearance often, and now we know that that's a characteristic of rocket launches, but they didn't know that then. So the Russians found it to be to their advantage to promote the UFO narrative to hide the fact that they had a secret missile base.
And that is good information. We should all take heed when we're looking to the media, social media, whatever, the internet, when we see, this UFO sighting and all of this. And I mean, look to these examples that should pretty much sum it up. And so I want to quickly address before the end of the show something that has been, I think, a common theme in ufology throughout the decades. We have a need to, or for whatever reason, our belief system, perhaps that is manipulated. But where do you see religion coming into this? And do you think this is a religious topic? I know this is a landmine, but we've seen a lot of different people over the years who think this is God or angelic beings. I'm not saying that that's incorrect. I'm just saying, what are your thoughts on that? So anyway, Barry, ready? Go on that one.
I never thought of the topic for a long time as a religious topic at all. I don't really endorse any religious explanation for it, but there's certainly elements of religious belief involved as far as people's reactions to sighting reports and attaching explanations to them that can be quite esoteric or even religious. And now and then you have the anomaly like Heaven's Gate in 1997, where a group of people were so embedded in belief that a UFO was going to come and pick them up that they accepted some pretty bad information off of the old Art Bell show and interpreted that as a reason to commit suicide and go on the spaceship that was supposedly coming behind Comet Hale-Bopp then. It was tragic, and I don't really like to invoke religion with this subject, but it's there. That urge to believe is in people, and it really comes out from time to time.
It absolutely does. And I want to just kind of segue into the Collins elite and some of the things that Nick has done research on and wrote a book called Final Events, which is a book that I've talked about at great length. And you look at some of the players that were involved in this and their religious perspectives and things. And so, Nick, give us a little bit about that and how religion has been inserted into the narrative.
Well, yeah, I think, when you bring religion into anything, it's guaranteed to sort of polarize people into different camps. And I think that's because, like Barry said, one of the key issues in the world of religion is belief. And different nations, different cultures have different beliefs about this God or that God or multiple gods. And you can easily see, I think, as to why some people do go down that path and have done so. One, because you can make parallels, between some of the biblical accounts and UFO encounters. I'm not saying I'm endorsing these, but the sort of the classic ones are like, for example, Ezekiel's wheel, the Star of Bethlehem, things like this, where you can interpret them in sort of a UFO angle, but the story originates in a religious text. And I think the thing to remember is that whichever side of the camp you're on, excuse me, a lot of it is down to interpretation of the data. You look at it from a 21st century perspective, you could say, well, yeah, Ezekiel's wheel was a UFO. 300 years ago, they'd have a totally different scenario on it. So I think that's an important thing to note. And in relation to Final Events, which you mentioned, that's a book I wrote back in 2010 about a small group in the government, sort of like a think tank type group in the DOD, Department of Defense, which looked into the UFO subject and felt that it was demonic. Now, it's important to note that, just because people in the DOD or in the Pentagon, they're not aliens, they're just like us. So you could easily understand why somebody in the field of ufology might think, the UFO subject is related to religion and demonic, which is one of the popular theories. But they're just like us, they have families and children and, so I think it's easy to understand why people do go down that path. If you look at a lot of John Keel's writing, Keel walked away pretty much from the extraterrestrial angle, talked about these ultra-terrestrials, which kind of came across like demonic entities, and I'm sure a lot of that inspired, some people in government. For example, Harry Reid, when the whole ATIP thing kicked out, and Reid was linked to the UFO subject, and then we found out that he was tied, to sort of the demonic side of that as well, in terms of belief systems. So, I think if you look at the UFO subject, I think the primary belief systems are that they're extraterrestrial or time travelers or interdimensional, or there's a religious aspect. I think they're sort of the primary theories, and the important thing to note is they're theories, and different people are going to have different views, and that's what we're seeing,
Well, and it is interesting to me because I think that there's definitely, there are different camps, and you can see this, and you can see the manipulation of people's belief systems. They have a sighting, and then, you glom onto this Facebook group, and they're going to tell you this is, extraterrestrial, or you're going to glom onto this group, and they're telling you that this is, ultra-terrestrial, or this group saying that this is God and an angelic being. And nobody is, at the end of the day, I guess, sure where that comes into play. But I do find it interesting, though, that there is, especially as of late, such a push to, use the religious angle. I'm not saying that's not correct. I'm just throwing this out there. And I think with regard to the Collins elite, the more I look at the people that were involved with Bigelow and Harry Reid and things. I think they've come out and said, okay, there was this conservative group of people that tried to get our funding shut down. I'm actually questioning whether the people that were involved in the Collins elite weren't the people, talking about it to begin with. Because you look at some of the people involved and you go back to MK Ultra and some of these other things and you say, maybe, I don't know. I think, 10 years later after your book, which is groundbreaking, I think there are a lot more questions, and we need to really be looking at some of the narratives that have been pushed out there and say, wait a minute, maybe this wasn't correct. Let's go down this aisle. And Nick, I want to just say you've been so supportive of me in every step of my kind of learning curve on this and asking questions. And I really, really appreciate everything. And I hope to write a sequel to Final Events because you've been a big inspiration.
Yeah, I think that, as you know, we've talked about it, I think that would be great if you could kind of, do sort of a sequel, because that would demonstrate, the story wasn't just coming from me. You've got all this corroborative material that has come through in the past 10 years, since I finished my book. So, and I think it's always good. And, it adds a sense of, just having a second source or, somebody else totally different to, who wrote the first book. I think that's a good thing because it does demonstrate that it's not just coming from, a bunch of sources who I spoke to, but, you're able to say, well, hang on a minute, I followed up on Nick's book and this is what I found. So I think that adds to sort of credibility and validity as well.
Absolutely. And I can't thank you enough because, like I said, you and I have had numerous conversations about this and we've had great conversations. And I think there's much more to come on this. And Barry, I want to just go back to you and ask you, over the years, you've seen specific people. I mean, we've got the same people that have been involved, especially behind the scenes. And some of those people do have a religious bend to them. Do you think any of that has influenced their work or where they're moving or some of the organizations that they're involved with?
Oh, I'm sure it's had a great influence. I'm sure the general climate in the country has contributed to that even now, where I think if you have conservative dominance in government, you tend to have a more open religious approach to everything. You can see fundamentalists having a great deal of power now in mainstream government, and I think that can translate down into folks involved with the UFO topic to the point of using their inclinations to manipulate the topic in very political directions. Look what happened with AATIP. They appealed to Washington, and $22 million shows up for them to do research with. And I'm not sure of Robert Bigelow's political inclinations, whether he's a conservative or a liberal or what, but my guess would be people in the defense industry tend to be conservative.
I would, after seeing some things, I would definitely say he's a little bit more conservative. And so, I mean, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I mean, I was a Republican delegate, I mean, I understand the need to look at both sides of things. But I think when there is, when we insert belief systems into things and when we try to taint things the way we've seen over the decades, we should be looking at people's motivations. We should be looking at, behind the scenes, who are they politically aligned with? Where are funds going? Whose campaigns are they donating to? What are these politicians doing to benefit the people donating to the campaigns? And so on and so on, because there is much more behind the scenes going on. And it's really critical that we look at this and we don't just say, "Oh, because Bigelow went on 60 Minutes, this is the end all be all." And I want to just say that something that is kind of makes me smile a little bit is that Chris, my husband, was actually the only other person that was with Bigelow when he did the 60 Minutes interview, which I found quite interesting. But we want to think that these people that are coming forward and representing disclosure are heroes. And at the end of the day, we need to step back and really, we all know that there's something genuine, and we all know that deserves to be respected, and we're not getting the answers that we deserve. And so, Barry, where do you think we should go from here, and how are we going to influence the younger generation to make a difference?
Oh, the only way to do that is to present as positive and as accurate a face of this subject as possible, and that means stripping away all the nonsense that's been spouted over the years, and try to clarify events that happened as much as 60, 70 years ago or even more, and put them in a proper light, so that people won't come away with a false impression of what the topic is all about. And that's been very damaging to the subject over the years. Bad information leads to bad conclusions.
And thank you. That is beautifully put. And Nick, so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would actually, I'd say just basically what Barry said. I think that's, that was sort of a perfect line or series of lines. So, but in terms of, you mentioned about sort of younger generations and things like that. I think, it has to be something that is going to sort of touch on people's imagination and pull them in. It's I think it's one of these subjects where you can really become deeply interested in it. But we need to be able to bring the new generations in, because otherwise we could end up just going over old ground because there's nobody else to talk about new ground, So, I think it's important, to make sure that there are new generations coming along, and also with new sort of concepts and ideas, as to present like a refreshing new look at this case or that case. And I think even with some of the really good old cases, we can always keep learning a little bit more, So, that's just what we need to do, is just keep pushing, keep looking for data, getting more and more people involved, and make them realise, this isn't just sort of a game. It can be exciting and fun, but also, it's a genuine mystery. So.
Absolutely. And all of us, we're hooked. I've been involved in this. This has affected me my entire life. I drew a picture in my library, that both of you have seen. I was in third grade, and it was of a UFO and an alien. And I've always been fascinated. I have a sense of wonder. I've experienced things that I cannot explain to this day. And I believe that this can be a very empowering topic, and that we need to really look at good research, which is being done. It's just not necessarily in the United States. I've kind of stressed that multiple times. But at the end of the day, even if I die not knowing any answer to anything, I will say that this has been one hell of a ride, and I've met people that I will love and cherish for the rest of my life. I've learned a lot of life skills. I've learned how to be humble. I've learned how to, at the end of the day, just say, okay, I was wrong, but let's keep on trying and get to the bottom of this. And I've experienced the best and the worst in humanity. And for that, I am really, really, really grateful. It's a trip. And so I want to just thank you, Barry and Nick, for being here and for not only being here tonight, but for being here over the years and for giving people good information. You both have meant a lot to me. You mean a lot to me. For all of my listeners who have been here and you've watched the different emotions and the different things that I've gone through and discoveries that I've made, what I feel tonight and my belief system tonight might not be what I am experiencing 5 years from now. It could change tomorrow, but the point is we're learning this together and we're willing to accept our defeats. We're willing to look at the facts. We're willing to move forward in a positive direction. I am grateful for all of you. I want to say Scott Brown, RJ, Ken, Doug Down Under, Dave, all of you are positive thinkers. You mean the world to me. You can stick around for a great night on KCOR. Willie Miranda is up next. He is incredible. I love him. And also I did the Paracast this week. I'll be releasing that when that gets up. Make sure you do your homework and please support UFO Classified. Go to Barry Greenwood's wonderful Greenwood archives and we'll get Nick on and he can actually talk about his new book on assassinations. Thank you so much. Be safe and please get toilet paper and send it to me. I take donations, specifically toilet paper. So good luck with the zombie apocalypse. Be safe and I will catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcast